Hey everybody, welcome back to the Down Commander Deck Dojo, Episode 3. Today we're going to be getting philosophical with it as we try to answer the question, what makes a hero? Hello there, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to the Deck Dojo. I'm your sensei, AJ. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for stopping by to check us out today. Remember, if you like what you see here, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share this video with your friends, and comment down below. It's all super easy, it's free, and best of all, it helps the channel a whole ton. If you feel like getting to know me on social media, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at MegasoftheSalt. And finally, Down Commander officially has its own Patreon page. That's right, if you want to help out, if you have a few bucks lying around and you want to see more content like this or get access to some special exclusive content, hop on over to patreon.com/topdowncommander. Any support you want to throw my way goes a long way towards keeping the lights on here and making it so that I can continue to bring you bigger and better content in the future. With all of that business out of the way, let's go ahead and dive headfirst into the top-down portion of today's deck tech. Today we ask the question, what is a hero? Is it a person or a concept? What is the measure of a hero? Is it in the number of lives she saves or the way she stands against injustice? Is it their willingness to sacrifice themselves for their friends? Perhaps it is in the compassion he shows his enemies. No matter how one defines hero, Magic the Gathering has had no shortage of them. Some have been powerful mages like Jace Beleren or Chandra Nalaar, while some have been defiant necromancers and proud soldiers like Liliana Vess and Ajani Goldmane. Some have given the greatest sacrifices like Gideon Jura and Venser the Sojourner. But long before the Gatewatch lived the crew of the Weatherlight. Sisay, Joyra, and Karn were among the crew that battled Phyrexians and shaped the destiny of the multiverse. But none among the crew bore the title of hero quite like the commander of today's deck, Gerrard, Weatherlight Hero. Gerrard, Weatherlight Hero is a 3/3 legendary creature human soldier for 2 a red and a white. He has first strike and, when Gerrard Weatherlight Hero dies, exile it and return to the battlefield all artifact and creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Gerrard's final act ensured his legacy would never die. Today we're going to do our best to bring honor to that legacy with a unique angle on how to tackle what it means to be a hero. As displayed in this card's design, Gerrard was always more than willing to sacrifice himself to rescue others from the brink of death. So with this in mind, we set forward on our path, prepared to sacrifice our commander should the need arise, that his forces might cheat death and bring forth victory. Now that we've started at the top, let's take a look down at Sensei's strategy for this deck. Today's deck is going to be Board Wipe Tribal. That's right, we're going to lean into Gerrard's ability to sacrifice himself and recur our crew by utilizing board wipes offensively. Because of this, we're going to prioritize enter the battlefield card draw and ramp effects. And finally, we're going to end the game with a well-timed board wipe, recurring all of our creatures and using Haste Enablers to beat down after the board wipe when our opponents have no defense left. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and head into the meat and potatoes of this deck. Alright, we're going to begin this deck tech like every good commander deck should, with a strong foundation in ramp and card draw. We start off with Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, and Mind Stone. Then we've got Star Compass, Talisman of Conviction, Boros Signet, and Boros Locket. Next up, there's Gold Mirror and Iron Mirror. Then we've got Heraldic Banner and Commander's Sphere. Heraldic Banner may only tap for one color, but it's going to give us +1/+0 to all of our creatures, and that buff can be incredibly important. Next up, we've got some recurable ramp in Knight of the White Orchid and Solemn Simulacrum. And then another set of reusable ramp and draw triggers that we can use are Mycosynth Wellspring and Ichor Wellspring. And they especially work well with Gerrard because if we can sacrifice them and then recur them with Gerrard in the same turn, we're going to get double triggers out of them at that point. We're also going to be drawing cards with Arkham's Astrolabe, Alchemist's Vial, and Prophetic Prism. Arkham's Astrolabe is honestly the only reason that we're playing snow basics in the deck, but thanks to Modern Horizons, the price of snowlands has dropped a whole bunch, and so it's really affordable to go ahead and throw them into this deck as well. More creatures that draw cards when they enter the battlefield include Wall of Omens and Sky Scanner. And then some cards that will conditionally draw us cards are Mentor of the Meek, Magus of the Wheel, and Skullclamp. Next up, let's look at the most important part of Board Wipe Tribal in Don't Forget to Wipe. Alright, first up are the damage-based board wipes. We've got Star Storm and Blasphemous Act. Then we've got Cleansing Nova and End Hostilities. Cleansing Nova is going to give us the flexibility to deal with artifacts and enchantments if necessary, and End Hostilities is going to get rid of any auras or equipment that we really need to get rid of while dealing with creatures on the board. Then we've got Day of Judgment, Nevinyrral's Disc, and Fumigate. Nev's Disc is especially good because, again, we can recur it with Gerrard and get into these really cool loops. Then we've got Hour of Revelation and Akroma's Vengeance, both of which can deal with most, if not all, permanents. And then finally, let's blow up everything with Obliterate. We want to be careful with this, but when it's used properly, Obliterate can be a finisher for this deck. With all that wiping done, let's look at some Haste Enablers and redundancies for Gerrard in Hard and Fast. It just so happens that sometimes Gerrard won't be there to save the day, so we want to double down on effects like his with Brought Back and Faith's Reward. Then we've also got Make a Stand, which will make our stuff indestructible and give them +1/+0 until end of turn, so we can use that defensively to save our crew from a board wipe, or we can use it offensively to give that extra punch to our creatures on an alpha swing. Impact Tremors can also help give us some much-needed reach for the late game. Then we get to the Haste Enablers. We start off with Fervor and Hammer of Perforos. Fervor is really good because we have a lot of wipes that don't touch enchantments, and so if we can keep that on the board, that'll be really nice. Hammer of Perforos is an artifact, so it will come back with Gerrard's trigger, which means we can sacrifice it and not have to worry. And then we've also got Chasm Guide and Flamekin Zealot. Both of these enter the battlefield and give haste to our entire team, which is really important because this is how we're going to use them after an offensive board wipe to ensure that our team can still get in for damage immediately. Finally, Heroic Reinforcements is going to give our team a buff and give them haste. It's also going to make 2 bodies, which is really going to help us with going wide enough to finish off our opponents. And now, let's take a look at the creature package in Be Aggressive. Be aggressive. Let's start with some creatures that are going to bring along friends when they attack. Karizev Skyship Raider, Sky Knight Vanguard, and Hanwar Garrison all make tokens when they attack. Next up, we've got Angel of Invention and Sunhome Guildmage, who can both pump out tokens or buff our creatures. Then there's Foundry Street Denizen, Toolcraft Exemplar, and Swiftblade Vindicator. Foundry Street gets bigger with every red creature that enters the battlefield. Toolcraft cares about us having artifacts. And Swiftblade has yummy keyword soup. Segovian Angel, Sky Terror, and Sky Knight Legionnaire are all flying threats. We've also got Akroan Hoplite, Honored Crew Captain, and Legion Loyalist, who all care about attacking with multiple creatures. And then finally, we've got Odric, Lunarch Marshal, and Mirror Entity to help serve as finishers if we need it. With the creatures out of the way, let's take a look at Sensei's secret tech for this deck. As always, Sensei's secret tech are going to be my picks for the top 5 cards in the deck. As fitting in this deck, we're going to have all 5 of Sensei's secret tech as board wipes. Let's go ahead and kick it off with number 5, March of Souls. March of Souls is a sorcery for 4 and a white. It says, destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller puts a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying into play. Okay, so the way we're going to abuse March of Souls with Gerrard is that we're going to destroy all creatures, including Gerrard. Everyone's going to get a 1/1 spirit for all their creatures. But then all of our creatures minus Gerrard are going to come back onto the battlefield. So what it's going to essentially do is, if we have 6 creatures, including Gerrard, we'll end up getting 5 creatures back and getting 6 1/1 spirit tokens with flying. We may be giving our opponents some advantage as well, but hopefully we're going to make the best of this advantage by getting rid of all of their useful creatures and just giving them these vanilla spirits, while we get to keep our creatures and get the spirits. Next up at the number 4 slot, we've got Phyrexian Rebirth. Phyrexian Rebirth is a sorcery for 4 and 2 white. It says destroy all creatures, then create an XX colorless horror artifact creature token, where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. Just like March of Souls, we have to have Gerrard on the battlefield, but we're going to destroy all creatures, including Gerrard. Then we'll get this XX colorless horror artifact creature token, and then all of our other creatures minus Gerrard will come back onto the battlefield. So we're going to use this to create a big giant boy that'll hopefully have haste with our other creatures coming back from the graveyard and giving haste to the team. So again, way to clear the path and generate some value on our side of the board as well. Next up at number 3, we've got Descent of the Dragons. Descent of the Dragons costs 4 and 2 red and says, destroy any number of target creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller puts a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. This could be used politically, sure, but in our deck, we're going to use this to destroy all of our creatures, including Gerrard. Then, just like March of the Souls, we're going to get a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying for each of those creatures that dies. And then Gerrard will trigger and bring back our team, so then we'll have our team plus a team of 4/4 dragons. And if we have a Haste Enabler, we're going to get over one of the biggest problems with Descent of the Dragons, which is waiting for them to not have summoning sickness so that you can attack. So if we can get this at the right time, we can use this to make a bunch of 4/4 flying dragons out of nowhere and kill our opponents. At the number 2 slot, we've got Indomitable Creativity. Indomitable Creativity costs X and 3 red and says destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until an artifact or creature card is revealed and exiles that card. Those players put the exiled cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle their libraries. So with Gerrard on the field and 4 or 5 artifacts, what we can do is say pay 5 is the X. Sacrifice Gerrard and 4 other things, then Gerrard will exile. We'll get those 4 things back onto the battlefield, and we'll still get the Indomitable Creativity triggers of looking for the next 4 artifacts and or creatures and putting them straight onto the battlefield. And as you scale up in budget, this card gets even better as you scale up towards more and more powerful threats. And finally, at the number 1 slot, we have Mogg Infestation, which is a sorcery for 3 and 2 red and says, destroy all creatures target player controls. For each creature that died this way, put 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield under that player's control. Much like March of Souls and Descent of the Dragons, this is going to do the same trick of with Gerrard on the field, sacrifice him and a whole bunch of other creatures, make a bunch of tokens, and get back your original board. The reason I picked this one as the top pick is because it makes 2 bodies for each one. So while they may be smaller bodies than Descent of the Dragons, and it's better than March of the Souls because March of Souls is only going to give everyone creatures. But I'm just a big fan of the fact that Mogg Infestation is going to give us 2 creatures. So if we have something like Impact Tremors on the field, that's really going to help. Something like Heraldic Banner on red can buff all these guys. I just think that we're going to get more benefit out of having multiple creatures entering the battlefield at the same time. And that is why this is Sensei's top pick of the deck. With the secret tech out of the way, let's take a quick look at the mana base. For this tech, I'm just going to start going over the important lands. So we start off with Ancient Den and Great Furnace, which are both artifacts, so they can be recurred with Gerrard if something were to happen to our lands. And then we've got Snow-Covered Mountains and Snow-Covered Plains. Again, It's mainly for Arkham's Astrolabe, which is just a really useful card, and they're pretty affordable now thanks to Modern Horizons, so I didn't think it was too bad to include them. And then the last one is Emergence Zone, which can be sacrificed and allow us to play any spells at flash speed. That's really important because as our deck is board wipe tribal, it can get difficult always having to play at sorcery speed. And so just having one in the mana base that's going to allow us to play at instant speed if we need to felt really good. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at the budget report. As always, our budget reports are calculated using TCG Player's Cart Optimizer, optimizing for heavily played and damaged cards because we're here to play jank, and you don't need to break the bank on jank. This deck comes in at a total of $86.84, and that's including the cost of the Commander and the basic Snowlands. Not too shabby if you ask me. With the budget report out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at Senseis Powerup picks for the deck. First up, we've got Toolcraft Exemplar, which becomes Serra Ascendant, because it's very hard to beat a 1-mana 6/6 flying lifelinker. Hanwar Garrison's going to become Hero of Bladehold, because the battle cry is worth the upgraded mana cost. Urabrask the Hidden is simply one of the best Haste Enablers we have access to, and Karizev Skyship Raider is honestly just a bit underwhelming. A Crowan Hoplite is gone and replaced by Aurelia the War Leader. She's a powerhouse evasive creature who's going to double up our combat steps, while a Crowan Hoplite has no evasion and only really pumps itself. Cleansing Nova is going to become Austere Command. It's 1 more mana and they're really similar, but that extra flexibility on Austere Command is unparalleled. And then finally, Obliterate is going to become Jokelhops. It's the same effect, but it costs 2 cheaper, and you lose the can't be countered clause. Honestly, a case could be made for including both cards, but I think if we're only going to include one card that blows up lands, let's make it the cheaper one. That said, in this deck, blowing up lands is a powerful win condition, and I think that's where we're going to talk about it in Sensei's Signature Strikes. For today's Signature Strikes, I just wanted to talk really quickly about land destruction. I know that land destruction is sort of against the social contract of Commander, but I think in some cases it can be a useful way to end the game. Like, it's every bit as effective in the right decks as any other method. Like in this deck, we're running Obliterate or Jokelhops. And my point is that these have to be used judiciously. You can't just fire off Jokelhops early on in the game and hurt yourself and everyone else and slow the game to a crawl. I feel like that use of land destruction is against the social contract. But I also feel like if you can use it intentionally and intelligently at the end of the game as a win condition, I think it can be a valid part of the game. So with this deck in particular, if we have a big board of creatures, haste enablers, mana rocks, all that sort of stuff on the board, we can use an Obliterate or a Jokelhops to not only blow up all of our opponent's creatures and their mana rocks and everything that they've got, we can also blow up their lands. So that if we can't alpha swing them in one strike and kill all 3 opponents, we can probably kill 1, maybe 2, and then the other opponent has no lands and no real course of action to stop us. So I would caution you, if you do decide to play this deck, or any deck that includes land destruction, use it when you're ready to end the game. Don't just fire it off early and bring the game to a standstill, because no one appreciates that in their games. So I would definitely say, I think that it's okay to use land destruction as a win condition, but not okay to use it just to stall out a game. But let's remember the scumbag's code. Game's gotta end. And with that, we're all done, so let's head into the wrap-up. Well, that's all she wrote, folks. Thanks for stopping by for this deck tech on Gerrard Weatherlight Hero, as we tried to figure out what makes a hero. And well, I think we settled on it's the sacrifices they're willing to make for their friends. If you like what you saw here, please go down below, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, comment down below, share this video with your friends. If you want to find me on social media, look for @Magus on Twitter and Instagram. And if you really want to help the channel continue to grow so we can bring you bigger and better content in the future, head on over to patreon.com/TopDownCommander and check it out. Thanks again for stopping by, and until next time, keep kicking ass.